at what we found. It's a big sound in a small town. Far from the bright lights, they're making music every night. Hear what is all around. It's a big sound in a small town. It's a big sound in a small town. It's a big sound in a small town.
Hi, and welcome to Big Sound Small Town. I'm your host, Sandy Carlton, and this is a podcast about the lives and stories of the musicians, writers, artists, and their associates that have their roots in the small towns and communities across America. If you like what you hear, tell somebody. Enjoy.
Well, I got dragged into this today. I'm Dean Jenks. I live here in Shelby, and I was born in Shelby, raised in Shelby. I've been out of Shelby a couple times, but always made my way back home. And I appreciate the opportunity for this interview, and I appreciate the opportunity that somebody in the world would think enough of my banjo playing to think it was maybe halfway worthy of some type of interview.
Well, you have been a banjo player a long time.
I've been a banjo player for a good while. I got my first banjo, it was in 1976, and that's a long time ago.
You're dating yourself, right?
I'm telling you, I'm old, but still going. I got it in an old one in 1976, and it was a very cheap beginner's banjo, and I bought it from this guy that I went to high school with, and came home and messed with it, having had taken guitar lessons for quite a while from Ray Ledford.
A legend.
And
yeah.
Basically played classical guitar, fingerstyle guitar,
Mm-hmm.
and so I got that banjo, and the tuning was a little weird on it, but I kind of got to where I could play a little bit. And of course, when you learn to play the banjo just a hair, the first thing that you're obligated to do is to start a band.
True.
And start playing. And I think I could play like maybe 2 songs. And we started a band in high school for the purpose of being able to play these special events and not have to go to class.
Do you remember who that was? Do you remember who was in it?
I'm telling you, it was all the. I don't think basically any of them were musicians. It was a guy. It was a guy named Jim Rose. It was a guy named Carr Palmer. It was a guy named Pete Decker, who actually was a good bass player. And I think Pete was the only one of us that really knew anything. And there were a couple of people that blew a jug, and somebody played the spoons. And it's just whatever. If you were in that group of friends, you could figure out some type of instrument and play. So that went on for a while. And then I came home one day, and we had a new storm door on the front of our house. And I went into the house, and my banjo was gone.
Oh.
And I said, what has happened? And my mother had gave my old banjo to a man for putting a storm door on the house. And she said, don't worry. She said, I'm going to get you a banjo. So we went to the only place on earth, I think, the only place on earth in existence that I knew about that sold banjos, which is Shelby Drury and Loan.
Right.
And went up there and ended up buying an Aria Pro 2 650, of which I still have.
Really?
I do. And I got that one. And so went on and on and on and on, and played and played and played. And finally kind of got hooked up with Ray Allison and Jimmy McKee
I know
and
both of
Steve
them.
Kaiser. And we formed a band called Buffalo Creek.
Yep.
The only other band that I knew of around here Of course, they were better than us, and they were Brushy Creek.
Yeah.
And that was David Martin, and that was Mike Lynch and those guys. And they were much better than us, but because our names were somewhat similar,
Yeah, they were.
we actually were called a few times for people that I think were calling them. And then they got surprised when we got there to go over our stuff. And it was fun, and we did that. But I kind of got serious about the banjo then. And basically, at that point in time, met Bobby Jones.
Yeah.
And Bobby Jones, Dr. Jones, had come to town, and he was a mandolin player. And so we formed a couple bands and went on from there. And you know, we're doing what we're doing. But back at the first inkling that I had of hearing the banjo, I was with my daddy. And my daddy was a huge Flat Scruggs fan.
Yeah.
And so we had this record player at our house, and you'd hear these magic sounds coming out. And I played some guitar. I was a kid. Now I'm talking about a little kid, maybe 7 years old. And I was able to strum a couple chords on a guitar, but I'd never heard anything. That banjo sound was just like captivating. The Foggy Mountain Breakdowns and the Beverly Hillbillies and things like that you would hear. And I said, Daddy, what is that? And he said, that's a 5-string banjo. And so I knew that somehow or another I was going to incorporate a 5-string banjo into my life. I didn't know exactly how.
Exactly.
And I didn't know how to express it, but that was it. And every time Dad would play those records, he and I would sit on the couch and would study that music.
Right.
I mean, just listen to it. Unfortunately, my dad died when I was 13.
Oh,
and he never heard me play
really?
a note.
That is really, that's
and
tragic.
that's kind of a bad thing. So what you want to do, advice for young people, start picking that banjo early so anybody that's old can hear them before they die. But anyway.
Okay, did playing, I know you had a classical guitar lesson.
Yes.
Did that help you as a banjo player?
I think it helped me with the position of how to hold the instrument, but the tunings are so different and the finger styles are so different and the left hand is so different. I won't say it hurt me, but I don't think it gave me much of a head start.
Yeah, I wondered about that. When you said it, I was thinking, well, I wonder if that made it easier or made it harder.
You know, I was used to holding an instrument in that position, but
the roles
it was kind of like
different.
speaking a different language.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like speaking a different language.
Did you ever take a lesson?
I did. As a matter of fact, I've had one lesson in my life, and that was from the famous Max McKee, also from around here. Max and I are good friends, and I don't get to see him as much as I used to, or as much as I'd like to. But I did. I had that old beginner's banjo, and we lived on Graham Street, and Max lived down on Gold Street, and so I walked up to his house, and I wanted to learn to pick the banjo, and he gave me my first good advice, and that was I was wearing my picks backwards. I had the finger picks that looked like they were extensions of my fingernails instead of going up under the tips of my fingers. So he straightened that out for me, and he showed me how to play about half of Cripple Creek.
Yeah.
And so I went home the next week, and man, I played that 5,000 times, and I got to where, not that I could play it like he could, but I got to where I was not slipping on it as bad. And so I go back the next week, and of course it's a good walk. It's multi-miles from there. And so I walked to his house and knocked on the door. Nobody was at home yet. And so I sat down on the porch and I played Cripple Creek about 20 more times, waiting to show him. And then it was getting dark and my lesson time was over. And I looked in his window and there was no furniture. He'd moved away. And so Max was gone. And so carrying that banjo up that 45-degree incline going up Graham Street toward my house, I said, there's got to be maybe a better way that doesn't incorporate walking and or toting this banjo. And so I just went home, and over time, I didn't give up on it. I just figured things out and would listen to records. That same old record player was still in my house with my dad, and you'd slow those records down, have to tune your banjo down, but you would figure things
Needle
out.
drop stuff
Yes,
over and over.
absolutely. And Mom
That's the way
wore
it
those old records out and wore that record player out, but did at least get my foot and my ear in the door as to sort of formulation of banjo music.
That's
kind of strange. But.
Well, no, I think that's the way at that time musicians learned.
They did. There was no internet. There was no YouTube. There was no online lessons. I didn't see any books out about master the banjo in 5 easy steps or anything like that. And
I think it develops an ear though too.
Yeah, it really helped me hear things. And now most of the times when you play mostly by ear, and I don't use very much banjo tab. I see banjo tab and I can interpret it, but not really quick.
Yeah.
And you can hear what people are doing and translate that to where to put your fingers on that fingerboard. And that's kind of a skill, I guess, that you get over time. But
and that's another key thing, time. You just have to put in a lot of practice.
You do. I mean, well, you're just not. You're not going to cheat that piece of wood out of its time.
You're not.
Some people.
That's great.
Some people come to grips with it faster than others, and some people don't stay in it long enough for them to ever come to terms with playing an instrument. But you're not going to cheat it out of its time.
You're right. David Martin told me one time that it takes 7 years before you can even consider that you might even can call yourself a banjo player.
Well, I know that I always thought that like a fiddle player, you'd have to start playing the fiddle when you were like 4 years old. By the time you're 55, you go out in public.
That's about right.
But it's just a thing, and it's not. I wish I had known this in my earlier life, but it's not about where you're going. It's the journey. Whole point is. It is. Yeah, it's the journey. It's not the destination, because I don't know anybody that really cares about playing music much that has a destination. No, they're always in a state of learning. And the more I learn about that banjo, the more I realize how very, very little I know about it.
Yeah. Well, that's the way it should be. Yeah, I mean, you can't evolve if you don't do that.
Correct. It's always a learning situation. There's always new things. There's always new positions. There's always new keys. Mm-hmm. There's always new songs, always new approaches.
True.
But I really enjoy it. It's one of the things that in my life that the more I do of that, the more I want to do.
Oh, yeah. That's great. I mean, that's the way it should be.
I believe so, too.
It's, well, you actually, you want to talk about the Bobby Jones era?
I will. I got a call one night, and it was Bobby Jones. I didn't know Bobby Jones, and I didn't know Bobby Jones' daddy, who was the older Dr. Jones in town. I didn't go to them as patients or anything. And he said, I'm Bobby, and I've just moved into town, and I'm a new doctor in town, and I heard you play the banjo, and I play the mandolin a little bit. I'd like for you to come over to my house and play. And so I was very newly married then, or this might be right before I was married. And my wife Jan said, "Who was that on the phone?" And I said, "It's some weird doctor that wants to play music." So I did go over to his house, and we didn't play very well, but it was a lot of fun. And then gradually we incorporated other people from various other bands. And
you were in another band at that time, right?
Yeah, and but that band was kind of almost at the end of its run.
Right.
And so we started a band, and it was called, I think this one was River Bend. And Doug Ross, and Jim Cochran, and Bobby, and myself. And that ran on for a while. And then we started a band called New River.
Right.
And then the New River is when Horace Scruggs, who is Earl's brother, joined the fold. And Horace, over time, evolved into a person that I would best call just like my grandfather. I noticed that we're at the Scruggs Center today recording
Right,
this, and one of the guitars down there in the case, that old Vega guitar, it
Mm-hmm.
stayed at my house probably for 7 or 8 years because Horace had another guitar to play, and he would just leave that one at the house so he wouldn't have to, as he say, tote. He wouldn't have to tote the guitar to my house. And so I just, Horace Scruggs had impeccable timing and rhythm. And he basically was one of the driving forces that helped me to develop the position of timing within music. And if you were wrong, he sure did not mind telling you
But
that you
that's
were
how
wrong.
you learn. That's how you get better.
And so after him telling me I was wrong probably 350,000 times, maybe we all got in sync and played in time, and that was a
That
was a good thing.
That was a good thing.
That was a good thing. And Horace Scruggs opened a lot of doors, that not to monetary gain or not to anything like that, but
Right.
when you were Earl's brother, you got introduced to a lot of people, and I just got to meet a lot of fine musicians.
It's okay to name drop.
I guess certainly Earl, and we spent a lot of time together. Earl would come to Horace's house 3 or 4 times a year, and we would go to his house. He lived in Madison, Tennessee, which is a suburb of Nashville.
Yeah.
And we would go up there and stay, and it was always just like a blessing. I can't even tell you, I don't even have a better word for that, but my mother, in 1984, Gibson introduced a new line of banjos, and it was Earl Scruggs' signature line of banjos. And the first 1,984 of those banjos were a lighter sunburst color because Earl's had been refinished at a Gibson factory at one point in time with that honey color. He didn't really give them permission to, so the story goes, but they were finished in that color. And I wanted to get one of those banjos, and I was, right out of high school, and I didn't have any money.
Right.
But my mom bought me one, and which I still have and still play periodically. But the good thing about that one, besides it being directly from my mother, is Earl went to the factory, the Gibson factory, and picked it out, and to top that off, brought it to me for my birthday. And that was a pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean,
and so,
it's hard to get much cooler than that.
I say. And then, so that day at Horace's house in Bowling Springs, we had a big cookout and a big hoopla. And Earl came down and he brought my banjo. And the first thing that he did is that he played my banjo all day, and I played his.
Oh yeah, that's too cool.
And that was just, there are people who say, well, I saw Earl's banjo one time. I got to pick Earl's banjo a bunch. Now, I didn't sound like him playing it, I will be honest with you, but it sounded a little bit better than what I had been picking. I will say that. But I remember at the end of the day, I was so grateful, and I just joked, and I said, Earl, I sure hope I don't mix these things up and put yours in my case. And he laughed, and he said, well, we'll try to keep an eye on that. But he came across as such a nice, humble, down-to-earth, just a genuine good guy. I walked in, and he had on old breeches and Walmart tennis shoes. And, to be somebody that had basically invented not only a style, but a genre of music.
True.
For him to have spent any degree of time talking or caring about me
Right.
to that level. I'm just, the only thing that, and I mentioned this before we started this interview, the only thing that I hate about that is I did not realize the importance of it at the time. I just always considered him Earl. I knew he was a great banjo player,
Right.
but that's not the way that he wanted us to think of him as. It was Horace's
that's a good
brother.
way, though.
Do what?
That is a good way, though.
I'm sure it is in its own way, but he was Horace's brother, and we would all go out and stack wood in the backyard to put in the stove at Horace's house and stuff like that. So Earl was just a good guy.
Right.
Just a great guy.
Yeah, and I can see where it would be hard knowing him that way to really understand just the whole piece in history that, you were there.
I just didn't realize. Where I was at that moment.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But
almost something you took for granted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it was fun, and man, what a good guy. And he would call me periodically on my birthday at home, and there would maybe people, and I was married by then, and I've got a picture of him holding my daughter Jana. And I'm holding my daughter Jessalyn, and when the Scruggs Center first opened, Jana was an employee here. She works over at the LeGrand Center now, but she worked here, and so I think on her desk, maybe here, and I don't know which office she had, but she had a picture of the person that this center is about holding her.
Yeah, that's
and her
pretty
being
cool.
a baby. And so I've got that. Yeah,
that's
I've
pretty
got
cool.
Things like that at home, little things like that.
Yeah.
Kind of neat.
I mean,
So it didn't help me pick the banjo much better, but it was it sure was a fun thing.
yeah, that was. I went to Hank Garland's house.
Oh, yeah.
With Buster Kendrick several times.
Yeah, and I remember playing music with Buster Kendrick
Yep.
too. Yeah.
And I don't think at the time I realized that I was sitting there with Hank Garland, who was. I just did not realize that too, which is not quite as cool as the Earl deal, but I do understand.
That's pretty cool. We would go, Bobby Jones and I, and a couple times, I think Darren Aldridge went, a couple times Doug Ross went, some other people went. Every other year, John Hartford would have an after Christmas, before New Year's party, and we would go up to his house, and he lived right on the Cumberland River up there at Nashville.
Yeah.
And the big Opryland paddle wheeler would go by, and you could look down and see that, and somebody would be cooking a big pot of chili and stuff like that. But inside, I've got a picture that somebody took, and it's actually blown up picture. And I am a young man and have a jet black beard. And it's like, I don't even know who that guy is anymore. But I was playing the banjo, and John Hartford was playing the fiddle, and Bill Monroe was playing the mandolin, Roy Husky Jr. playing the bass, and Marty Stewart playing guitar, and David Greer in the background playing another guitar. And it's not that I was anywhere close to those people in ability to play, but it's like that was this kind of a magical moment.
Yeah, I'm sure that was. Yeah.
Played several times, and but at the same time, am blessed to be able to play with really good musicians here.
Yeah, you have been.
And I have played, with Bobby, and the passing of Bobby was a horrible thing, and the passing of Horace Scruggs, horrible thing.
Yeah.
I played with just about everybody around here.
You have.
Leonard McSwain, old Leonard, and Leonard's been playing for 50, 60 years
At
whatever.
least, yeah.
And Leonard's slowed down a little bit in his playing because of the COVID and everything, but man, what a fine man he is. And I play now. I got 2 opportunities to play. The first is I play with Wayne Parrish and Doug Rogers, and we are unofficially known as Fairly Dangerous Old Men. And we play a lot of instrumental stuff, and it's kind of moved beyond the bluegrass genre. It's gone into some more progressive stuff and some more kind of jazz influenced stuff, and then it's everything from big band stuff to it's just very good, and we've got some original music that we play.
Is that fun too for you?
Oh yeah, because
I mean, it's a whole different thing.
it is. It basically, being able to play with those guys, being able to play with people that are used to playing several different types, it's just like opening another door. And the banjo certainly has been at least stereotyped into specific bluegrass music,
True.
but it is, you look at Bela Fleck's stuff, and
Sure.
you look at Scott Vestal's music and all that kind of stuff. But it is so much fun. It is so much more challenging for new opportunities. And the older I get, it's harder for me to learn stuff. And
Right.
But man, different keys and minor keys and different tunings and different minor tunings and things, and it's just so much fun. And then also, and those two guys are my good friends. I played with Wayne for 40
long
years.
time,
Oh
man.
yeah.
Yeah.
He was with it through most of the bands. He lives down in Rock Hill, and such a fine man and such a fine musician. And same with Doug Rogers. He was one of the founding members of the band Acoustic Syndicate.
he was.
They were a little on the progressive side, and he brings that flair. And it's not just a standard bass line, but real tasteful scales and
I
tones,
agree.
and it's really good.
Fine
and
bass
then
player.
also, I get an opportunity when they play to play with Oak Grove String Band.
Oh, yeah.
And we were in this room, I think, and did sort of like a tiny desk
Yep,
concert
you
or
did.
big towns,
Yep.
big sound, small town. Or
Yep,
one
it was
of the
good.
world. And so
Got a lot of
yeah,
lot of likes.
and man, a lot of talent in that band, and Scott Moss and
Yep.
and just and Scott Moss and Tommy Brooks collectively are in 67 bands
Yeah, I think
at the
they are.
same time.
Yeah, I think they
But enjoy playing with those guys, and it's a bluegrass band, but it is a step outside of
Yeah, it
traditional bluegrass, and incorporates everything from
Grateful Dead.
Grateful Dead stuff, absolutely, to the Talking Heads,
Yeah, it
to
does,
Bill
yeah.
Monroe.
True.
So interesting to be able to play with them.
Yeah, they're a
And,
fun group of guys.
It's a great, and I appreciate them tolerating my
Did,
banjo playing.
did I not see you? Well, I guess that might have been a combination of them. Kind of a combination, I guess. I see you down at the Bicycles place playing with probably.
Yeah, that was that. Yeah,
That's kind
was,
of a
that was
hybrid Oak Grove.
actually that was about the newest inception of Oak Grove with Derek McCoy.
Yeah,
and and the thing is that we had
Phil
a gig
Simmons,
coming up.
I guess was-
Yep, right. He was Doug Rogers actually played
Oh, yeah.
some on that, but I think that we had a gig somewhere, and somebody made the suggestion, let's just
Practice
go
there.
down to the bike store, which was a neat place.
It is a neat
Yeah.
place, yeah.
I thought they would probably give me a bike or something, but they
Yeah.
didn't.
At least a
didn't.
beer.
Yeah, they did not. Yeah, but I probably could have had that, but I thought I was going to get a bike. I
Yeah.
did not get one.
Well, according to Scott
Yeah.
and Howard, you can't get a bike these days. There are no bikes to be had.
But boy, that was fun. And so, it seems like it's been a long time, but it seems like it's been in the blink of an eye, this whole banjo thing. Since I first got that banjo to now,
It has been.
I hope
has been a
it
long
goes
time.
on for a lot longer, because
You-
I sure do have fun.
You get to be older in life, and I still get to play, and I'm tickled to death. because
Same here.
You've had a
Same
very
here.
long career, and when you get to have one that is long and almost lifetime consuming to this
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
that's a fortunate person.
I'm telling you, and I'm blessed, and I know it.
I agree.
And I appreciate just the opportunity of having parents that appreciated music,
Yeah, that's
and
big.
introducing me to it, but never pushing me
Mm-hmm.
on it. And I think I don't think my mom was real happy when I switched from a classical guitar to a banjo.
Probably not.
But it kind of grew on her, I think. But yeah, it's just been a great ride, and I've just had so much fun, and I'm still riding.
Well,
That's the cool thing.
That is the cool part.
Still riding.
Plus, parents that have to grow up particularly listening to fiddles or banjos, I think they just get to go straight to heaven.
Oh yeah,
You know,
because
Yeah, I mean,
wow, my banjo picking. Sometimes it sounds like two cats in a
Yeah.
bag fight. And
My
you know,
fiddling
when I
used to-
started dating, I've been married to my wife 37 years, and wonderful lady, and my two girls, and they grew up.
Yeah.
Well, my two girls grew up hearing banjo.
yeah.
And not surprisingly, neither one of them want to play banjo.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But they grew up hearing it and were kind of forced sometimes to hearing it, because even when you take the picks off and you try to do what it ever do, the banjo is kind of an obnoxious thing
Yep.
to some people. But
Just
man,
like a fiddle. Both
they
of them.
have. It's not quite as bad as a fiddle,
They
but
can squeak. No, it's not as bad as it's not as bad as a fiddle. The only thing worse than a fiddle is an accordion.
there you go. but it's just part of my life, and I don't foresee that changing as long as I'm able to do it. Everybody around is, hardly had a crossword with a musician.
That's great.
You see people come and go. I know that I had a friend that I never played in a serious band with, on and off, but it was Perry Husky.
Yeah,
Played
Perry
the
Husky,
bass,
yeah.
and then Perry was killed, and it's just a tragic situation. And then Bobby Jones, Horace Scruggs, many others
Yeah.
that I've played with.
Sure.
But it's a good community around here.
It is.
A great group of people around here that play music, and I'm just glad to be standing amongst them in the group.
And you have for a long time.
Have for a long time.
And you got two things still working too. So
Yeah.
it's not like you're sitting at home
Oh.
in my glory days.
Oh no.
know,
These are
that's
we're
great.
still hard charging, and we're still learning, and looking forward to playing more with Wayne and Doug. And we played through the pandemic. We wore a mask. We put 6 feet apart, but we didn't quit playing. We played just about every week,
That's good.
and it was good. And
I think that helps too during a time like that.
It did, and it helped keep
Yeah.
sanity, and it helped keep. I've talked to musicians, and they'll say, oh, "Man, I hadn't had this thing out of the case, and
Yeah.
I can't dream about that."
Yeah.
We played every week. Most of the time when we weren't together, we played every day preparing for our next time. And I know a lot of musicians around here did the same. I know
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Scott Moss
Yeah.
and those guys.
Sure.
They certainly didn't slow down.
They didn't slow down. No.
I'm sure they.
I mean,
they
Tommy,
took
he's got
their-
about 4 different, since he's retired, he's got like 5 different bands. going.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So-
And those guys didn't slow down, but and so I'm glad to say I didn't either.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's just missed opportunity. Every time I get to play music, I feel lucky that I got to do it again.
Absolutely.
And
Don't you
to
know that?
to get to do that during that time, that would have been a lost block of time.
oh
really.
yeah, people lost a year of their life.
They did.
Absolutely.
They did. Sure did.
Yep.
And
I unfortunately got the COVID. I unfortunately got the pneumonia associated with it. It's the sickest I've ever been in my life. It's horrible. But I remember on the sickest day, the time I felt best is when I was in my recliner and I had my banjo on my lap.
Sure.
And that kind of took my mind off of things. I couldn't play very much, but man, it was good. And maybe we're coming out of this stuff, and maybe the festivals and the good jams and
would be so
the
good.
in-person meetings and the food and all that kind of stuff
Mm-hmm.
will come back, and we'll have jams on the lawn out here at the Scruggs Center.
Yep,
And
that would be good.
It's great.
I mean, I'm hoping that's where we're
That's where we're headed.
It
Yep.
is where we're headed.
Yep.
And you've had your vaccines also.
I
haven't you?
have, absolutely. I'm the safest person
He is.
around here to be around. Yeah.
I've had mine
Yeah.
too. I mean, I think also, I never, even though I have family members in the health field, I know that you're in the health
Yeah,
field.
yeah.
I still never believed that there would be a vaccine available as quickly
Well,
as it was.
and I guess it was true to name, the warp speed going through FDA, and man, I'm glad of it. Some people don't want it.
I know.
Some
they
people
don't.
are against it, and I'm certainly not here to sway anybody's opinion, but I got it.
Yep, I
After
did
having
too.
a taste of that pneumonia, I sure got it. But,
Well, I grew up in the smallpox, polio
Oh,
vaccine
yeah.
era.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
vaccines,
I remember getting up. Yeah, I remember that.
So measles, chicken,
Yes.
And I'm not trying to sway anybody either, but I'm glad I got it.
I'm glad I got mine too.
Yeah.
Glad I got mine.
Yeah.
And we got some things planned for the summer.
You're playing actually next week here or something, aren't you?
Well, actually, yeah. A week from today here, I'm not exactly sure what it is, and I'll probably mess this up, but it's some kind of an Airstream. Airstream.
Trailer thing where they're
Trailer thing, yeah, boy, that
yeah.
Airstream stuff is nice.
is.
I certainly don't have one.
Can't afford one.
I can't afford one either. But
they are nice. Though.
They are nice, and I think I'm playing up here next Saturday. I'm with Oak Grove String Band, and then Wayne and Doug and I, fairly dangerous old men.
Yep.
I think we're going to be going down to Myrtle Beach and Garden City, and have some things going on down there, which will be a great thing.
Yeah, great thing.
Oh yeah, and
you can go play in South Carolina. I'm doing a section now. People from upstate South Carolina, they all played during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
I mean, they played full up jobs during the pandemic.
Some of them people from upstate, I don't think they knew there was a pandemic.
I don't think they did.
It's hard to communicate with some of them guys.
Yeah, it is.
But I know that we're also down at the, I think the last of May for 3 big nights down at the Plum Hollow Music Park at the Moonshiners Reunion Festival. That's Oak Grove
Been there,
String
done
Band.
that.
And
Yep.
then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I think it was so popular last year, I think they just mandated us to play another night.
That's a
Or
fun.
maybe that's not what happened. I don't know.
I'll go with that. Yeah, let's go with that. That's a fun festival
Yeah.
too. It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's
Well, there's just so many things we could talk about. I think that's probably, there's so many things that have happened over the life of music, and man, I'm counting on so many more happening too.
Well, it's also we can laugh about living in a small town, but I doubt there's a better music town to live in.
I'll tell you,
anywhere.
Everybody around here plays music.
They do.
And,
you can find whatever style you want
absolutely.
in this town too.
And it's the thing that any advice that probably nobody would listen to that's coming on about playing music, about playing an instrument. It's not about a competition.
It is not a competition.
It's just not. And it's not about how fast you can play.
No.
It's not about how many songs this person knows rather than this one. And it's not about what you know versus what somebody else knows. It's about having a good time. And it's a way of communicating, expressing yourself, or when you get several people playing together, it's just a group expression that's very difficult to replicate in other
It is.
in other circumstances.
Well, if you've done
It's
it
phenomenal.
before in your life,
Yep.
I think a lot of times listeners don't really realize what it means to play with. If you and I just go in this other room and pick up one of the small instruments in there and play 10 minutes, that's a bond that you can't get.
Absolutely.
Going and get a cup of coffee. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's just,
That is correct.
it is something that is
And
special.
It's just that if you have an interest to play, you're not too old. If you have
No,
an
you're
interest
not.
to play, you're not too young. If you have an interest to play, you owe it to yourself.
I had Faisal Starling here. You know Faisal,
Yeah.
John's.
Who? Yes.
She's taking drum lessons just because she wanted to at a late age in her life.
And that's exactly why you should take them, is because you want to.
I agree, totally.
And that's 100%.
And there's and people do not have to be great at it to enjoy
Absolutely
it. You
not.
can
And
learn at an enjoyable level.
You sure
easily.
can. And you learn at an enjoyable level throughout your entire
You do.
stance with an with an instrument. Everybody's still learning.
Yes,
And when
they-
you quit learning, when you quit creating opportunities for you to learn, then you're done.
Yeah, that's your time is
and
run.
and boy, I can just see that the going around different corners and opening different doors and different tunings and different things on that banjo is just, it just creates an opportunity every time you pick it up.
I agree.
And I would just hope that everybody playing guitars, banjos, fiddles, whatever you happen to play, is get out when you can and play them with other people.
I agree.
It doesn't matter if you're good. Wherever you are, there's going to be somebody better than you. Wherever you are, there's going to be people
True.
behind you. Help those people
I agree.
behind you and hope that people ahead of you will help you.
Yeah.
And that's the way to approach the music. And I hope that's,
I don't believe I've had a person in all of these 100 of interviews that have a better take on how music should work than you do.
Well,
that's, that's
well, that's a compliment. I don't know about that, but that's it's
that-
all about doing
I've
what
always
you do.
felt that way,
Absolutely.
and I see competitions, for
Well, yeah. Now competition. When I say it's not a competition, if you're practicing for a competition, my advice to you is beat the britches off from other people.
Yeah, exactly.
But other than that,
But-
it's just it's.
and even then it should be just
It's
for
still
what
in
it
fun.
is. It is. I
Yeah,
agree.
it's still-
I agree. So music's a beautiful thing if you
Yeah.
can find a way to be a part of it. And even one of the things I'm thankful for is somebody wants to hear it too.
Absolutely.
You don't have to play
Yeah.
it, but if you like it, go hear it. Go
Correct.
support the local people.
Support live music,
Support
support
live.
local music,
Yep,
and
I agree.
and especially support what I'm playing with.
Yeah.
Because we need,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, acoustic music. They need enough gas just to get
Absolutely.
there.
Absolutely.
So, Dean, I appreciate you taking
My
the
pleasure.
time to
I
do this,
appreciate
man.
doing this, and I appreciate talking to you as always. And I hope that somebody would find this interesting enough to give it a listen.
I think they will.
This is just a great big part of my life, and I know it is yours.
Yes, it is.
And very important to me, and I appreciate it very
Well,
much.
I appreciate it too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.